Hello, my name is James Clare, and I'm a process development engineer here at APC. Welcome to this webinar, From Fragmented Data to Faster Process Characterization, how a connected digital approach improves visibility, decision-making, and execution. Before walking through the iAchieve workflow, it's worth setting some context around where process characterization tends to get difficult, because these are the challenges we had in mind when building it. On the product and data side, one of the most consistent issues we see is that historical process information is rarely in one place. Data quality varies, knowledge is held by individuals rather than systems, and by the time you're designing your characterization studies, you're often working with an incomplete picture of what's already been done or understood. And that directly affects how you plan your experiments. Without consolidated prior knowledge, there's a real risk of either over-experimenting or failing to investigate what matters. On top of that, cross-functional delivery constraints rarely make execution straightforward. Sitting above all is the regulatory expectation, because you need to translate whatever process understanding you generate into control strategy, with clearly defined powers and NORs and enough confidence in your design space to support PPQ in manufacturing. These challenges are connected, and each one makes the other harder. So first I'll define in more detail the technical component, and then some specifics on the iAchieve capabilities before jumping into a case study. So as we're all aware, the objective of process characterization is to establish a process that is well understood, controlled, and robust, ensuring consistent production of safe and effective products. And at the Medicine Accelerator, we break down our PC programs into a four-step workflow, the first of which is risk assessment and FMEA. In this step, we look to review historic data and process knowledge in order to highlight the limits of process understanding. And the reason iAchieve is so good for this is because in effect it's an exercise in consolidating the data in one place. So there's an important data and knowledge management advantage there from the get-go. Additionally, the extent of our involvement here can be more or less depending on the client specifics, but ultimately from this phase we want to establish the line of sight between our parameters and CQAs for which we'll design a smart experimentation plan for characterization. Next is scale down model establishment and qualification, where we complete our knowledge and tech transfer, establish our scale down models, and demonstrate that the lab scale systems can replicate the key behaviors and performance of the manufacturing process. This is then qualified through reproducibility and statistical means. Once we've qualified the scale down model, we move into our PC study design phase, where we complete our DOE design workflow to ensure our studies have maximum experimental power with minimal experimental load. And then lastly, we'll execute these experiments and complete our analysis workflow, where we build a design space and model for each unit operation, classify their parameters based on their impact, and establish our powers and NORs. iAchieve is the next piece of the puzzle. From a project management perspective, the platform incorporates Gantt resourcing information as well as the program objectives and deliverables. Next is the technical planning through web apps and digital experiments, and this is where the experiments are captured and the raw data is stored. And the final layers are unique in the value they offer projects and partnerships. The insights and technical discussion on results, designs, and data. So across the platform, stakeholders and SMEs can collaborate in threads on insights and experiments, and external partners can engage in discussions here too. And then finally, key stakeholders have access to the business intelligence layer. Here they can see metrics on program health, engagement, and progress. For example, the number of engagements, experiments ongoing, proposed and complete, or the number of CMC decisions or raw data files uploaded. And now you're familiar with both of these components, I want to present using an example of an end-to-end process characterization program to show how the knowledge, SMEs, and data-driven approach of the company can, when combined with the power of our iAchieve platform, bear real fruit with respect to delivery and timelines, and ultimately accelerate time to market for our partners. So for some background, it was a second generation mammalian process with over 3 years of development data already generated across 11 unit operations. A number of process changes had been implemented, with much of the development work being done in-house and a three-way CDA in place with their current CDMO. Importantly, there was a tight timeline to adhere to initiate a PPQ campaign in Q3 of 2025. So against that backdrop, this is how the program was structured. So the risk assessment and FMEA phase lasted about a month and a half. Here we reviewed and analyzed 35 different data files and technical reports, narrowing down the list of potentially critical process parameters from 65 to 53. This stage alone involved over 250 partner engagements within the iAchieve platform. Next, over 4.5 months, representative scale-down models were established for all 11 unit operations, 6 analytical methods were qualified, and a 250-litre tech transfer run was completed to generate material for downstream studies. In under a month, 32 DOE designs were evaluated and compared, leveraging SME expertise to include 34 key interactions, and we also carried out 4 support studies during this stage. And finally, over 6 months, we executed 279 digital experiments in iAchieve and analyzed more than 1,500 samples. From this, 8 process models were built with defined parameter ranges. So what you see here is the power of combining technical expertise and a structured risk-based approach with a digital platform like iAchieve. Together, that allowed us to compress timelines, generate robust models, and keep the program on track for PPQ, ultimately accelerating the path to market. The platform has over 30 web apps that our digital engineering team have developed, from equipment selection guides, modeling apps, or for real-time data visualization from equipment sets like the Amber 250. But the FMEA app is one that we use to expedite and control the data compilation, review, and scoring of process parameters prior to work. You can see from the screenshots here of the user interface with the CQA map, the unit operation and failure modes, and risk rating, as well as the history of change log. So following this data review and risk assessment of the process, we have potentially critical process parameters proposed for each unit operation based on their impact to process CQAs and the quality target product profile. But the value in the web app can be seen in the collaboration metrics from the project. In the case of our example, 17 SMEs at the Medicine Accelerator collaborated with 5 SMEs from the partner organization across over 250 iAchieve engagements. Here we were also able to use MVDA to remove 3 unit operations and over 10 PCPPs from scope. We also identified a number of previously unknown interactions existing across unit operations to include in our study designs. And finally, this stage closes with the generation of the PC master study plan for both upstream and downstream. So the scale-down model establishment and qualification work actually precedes the FMEA, and itself starts with the knowledge transfer phase, which is about 3 to 4 weeks at the kickoff. At APC, we pride ourselves on our engineering approach, and so projects kick off with our iAchieve engineering design package. This includes deliverables from your bill of materials to mass balances across unit operations, scaling calculations from manufacturing to lab scale, gap analyses, process flow diagrams, and even CFD and modeling. But all this supports right first time execution of engineering qualification runs for the scale down models, while the set of deliverables is also completed for the material supply runs completed with VLE. And finally, we will deliver a scale-down model qualification report for both upstream and downstream before moving into the next phase. The execution of the model establishment and qualification work for all upstream and downstream unit operations represented a collaboration of all 12 functions at the Medicine Accelerator. But on account of that due diligence on the front end with the engineering design package, we had right first time execution for all unit operations and the material supply batch. But as per the FDA process validation guidelines, it is important to understand the degree to which models represent the manufacturing process, including any differences that might exist, as this may have an impact on the relevance of the information derived from the models. So we employ a quality by design approach to model qualification, using equivalence test or two-sided t-tests on all process CQAs to ensure that the product from the scale-down model is truly representative of the manufacturing product. Another advantage and highlight of the platform is the real-time process insights. These aren't specific to process characterization programs, but as you can see here, we have examples of online and offline data from the Amber 250, as well as data from the C train. So we'll upload these to iAchieve daily or post-execution, which can highlight new process understandings or just share progress updates with the partner organization. But they allow for transparency on the lab work being completed and also expedite the reporting timelines on the back end. Our DOE workflows are something we've developed iteratively over the years with our engineering and data science teams and offer a really good opportunity for discussion and traceability on our study designs. We do this through the DOE design templates on iAchieve, which are used to standardize the design process across the programs. Here we track all design considerations and constraints from the number of runs available, study durations, or sampling limitations, but we also evaluate critical design elements, including the design type, resolution, inclusion of second order effects or blocking requirements. But for each unit operation, we draft a number of design options, and then we use the template to evaluate and compare each design to ensure we choose one with maximum experimental power and minimal experimental load. So we use different design elements like prediction variance, design power, and color maps to ensure we're following this quality by design approach. But the template allows for traceability on all of the rationale and decisions made in this phase, while also supporting again in the reporting phase, where the experiments can be easily exported and included in the final PC report. So the last phase in the workflow is to execute the experiments in the lab and carry out the DOE analysis workflow. Like with the DOE design, we have templates for DOE analysis, again allowing for a standardized and transparent approach for all unit operations. So the first step here is run success validation, which involves comparing your center point or control runs to your qualification runs to make sure that the baseline process performed as expected. This gives confidence that the changes you're making in the other conditions are causing the changes in your responses. And like with the scale down model qualification, we'll validate these runs by completing equivalence tests or two one-sided t-tests on the CQAs. Next, there's model analysis and identification of significant parameters. So first we'll see how well the model reflects the data and identify what parameters and interactions have significant effects on the product CQAs. Here we also use visualization tools like contour plots to understand how parameters interact and how responses shift across the design space. And then lastly, we can classify parameters through the impact ratio assessment. So the impact ratio quantifies the practical effect of a parameter on a CQA relative to the acceptance limits of the CQA. So we use this with design space profiling to define proven acceptable ranges and recommend a control strategy based on the impact of each parameter on product quality. Finally, even once we've moved into the reporting phase, iAchieve plays a huge role in accelerating the delivery timeline. It starts in planning, where scope, objectives, and deliverables were captured up front. As experiments are designed and executed, the platform provides standardized workflows and real-time access to process updates. All this raw data flows directly into compiled data for aims, eliminating handovers and preserving traceability. Analysis and discussions happen in real time, with teams working from the same dataset, but ultimately this allows for reporting to be streamlined, with designs, results, and rationales are exported directly into the PC report. By linking each step, the platform reduces rework, shortens timelines, and ensures a consistent, data-driven approach throughout the program. So when you look at iAchieve end-to-end, you can see how each stage maps back to the challenges we outlined earlier. On the risk assessment side, having a unified, standardized approach means that teams are aligned from the start, with the right people involved early and known unknowns surface before they become problems. Through scale-down model establishment and qualification, better coordination and real-time visibility reduce the kind of inefficiencies that tend to slow down programs at this stage. Experiment design becomes more focused, with clearer multivariate understanding of how parameters relate to quality and performance, so effort is directed where it matters. And at the execution and analysis, the emphasis is on coherent data, robust assessment, and a de-risk path towards scale-up and PPQ. These challenges are connected and each one makes the other harder. iAchieve is designed to address them systematically, allowing you to move through each stage with greater confidence. So that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you very much for your time.